welcome to another episode of Sensible Reactions. We're back with another one. This time we are not doing the good old crash course for psychology. We will be picking back up on that. I'm really in the process of trying to figure out, do I want to take in the knowledge and be able to explain it to you all, just because the videos are actually copyrighted videos. The issue with that is though it's not affecting my channel, I don't want to keep getting that. You know what I'm saying? And it's 42. We already talked about that, right? Okay, so I don't want to keep getting that. Okay, even though again it's allowed, it's just I don't want to have that habit. So right now that's kind of on a little bit of a pause, but trust me, I'm going to be getting that together. Don't worry. But what we are going to be reacting to on today, we're going to really start off with nature's hidden mathematics. So we're going to see what's to that. Like, what's to that, because I've heard about math being in nature in terms of patterns, of course, shapes, symbols. We know the shapes and symbols can play out and come out in a plethora of different ways in regards to the human form, you know what I'm saying, being taken on, and what we do with signs and symbols and blah blah. All right, so I don't want this to be long. We're gonna go ahead and hop right into the video. Thank you for showing up. I appreciate you. All right, because you could be doing something else with your time. So thank you, baby. All right, we're gonna get into it. Let's go.
The world is a universe of shapes and patterns, beautiful, complex, and sometimes strange. And beneath all of them is a mystery.
Oh, really quick. Speaking of strange, because I was just looking at some fashion and just looking at how they've taken certain concepts, certain patterns from nature, and it's just interesting to see how they actually incorporate it. But it's also a little strange and really, of course, not practical. But I want to see it done in a practical way, like a way where you really can wear this on a decent day, or even just to like a date night. So yeah, most times they like way over the top. So.
How does so much variety arise from the same simple ingredients? Cells and their chemical instructions. There is one elegant idea that describes many of biology's varied patterns, from spots to stripes and in between. It's a code written not in the language of DNA, but in math. Can simple equations really explain something as messy and unpredictable as the living world? How accurate?
That's something I do want to know about the birds. You see how they just do their thing? I do want to know about that though.
Accurately can mathematics truly predict reality? Could there really be one universal code that explains all of this? Here is a zebra. Black with white stripes or white with black stripes? This is not a trick question. The answer is black with white stripes. And we know that because some zebras are born without their stripes. It might make you wonder, why do zebras have stripes?
It looks brown. That doesn't really look black. It looks brown. It's just like we are considered black people when we're really brown, and the word black is derived from something else. So yeah, we're brown people. I'm a brown girl. I'm a little light skinned and ashy right now. I'm definitely still a brown girl.
Begin with. A biologist might answer that question. Is black with white stripes? And we know that because some zebras are born without their stripes. It might make you wonder, why do zebras have stripes to begin with? A biologist might answer that question like this. The stripes aid in camouflage from predators. And that would be wrong. The stripe's actual purpose is most likely to confuse bloodthirsty biting flies. Yep, but that answer really just tells us what the stripes do, not where the stripes come from, or why patterns like this.
What? I'll be honest, man. What? Cause what? All right. Okay. Let's continue. All right.
or even possible? Our best answer to those questions, well, it doesn't come from a biologist at all. In 1952, mathematician Alan Turing published a set of surprisingly simple mathematical rules that can explain many of the patterns that we see in nature, ranging from stripes to spots to labyrinth-like waves and even geometric mosaics, all now known as Turing patterns. Most people know Alan Turing as a famous wartime codebreaker and the father of modern computing. You might not know that many of the problems that most fascinated him throughout his life were, well,
So the patterns got named after him, even though he didn't create them pattern. But let's continue. Maybe he's gonna go into something else to explain that he. Okay, let's keep going.
about life, about biology. But why would a mathematician be interested in biology in the first place?
That's a really good question. I'm Dr. Natasha Ellison, and I'm from the University of Sheffield, which is in the UK. I think so many mathematicians are interested in biology because it's so complicated and there's so much we don't know about it. If you think about a living system like a human being, there's just so many different things going on, and really we don't know everything.
Real.
The movements of animals,
Sure.
population trends, evolutionary relationships, interactions between genes, or how diseases spread. All of these are biological problems where mathematical models can help describe and predict what we see in real life. But mathematical biology is also useful for describing things that we can't see. What do you say when people ask, why should we even care about math and biology?
Why should we care about mathematics in
It's pretty much like physics. I mean, they use physics to also calculate as well. Math, excuse me, to calculate physics.
describing biology? And the reason is because there's things about biology that we can't observe.
We can't follow every animal all the time in the wild or observe their every moment. It's impossible to measure every gene and chemical in a living thing at every instant. Mathematical models can help make sense of these unobservable things. And one of the most difficult things to observe
It's just an easy way to condense it all so that it makes sense to the human mind.
in biology is the delicate process of how living things grow and get their shape. Alan Turing called
Know how
this
that goes.
morphogenesis, the generation of form. In 1952, Turing published a paper called The Chemical Basis of Morphogenesis. In it was a series of equations describing how complex shapes like these can arise spontaneously from simple initial conditions. According to Turing's model, all it takes to form these patterns is two chemicals, spreading out the same way atoms of a gas will fill a box, and reacting with one another. Turing called these chemicals morphogens. But there was one crucial difference. Instead of spreading out evenly, these chemicals spread out at different rates.
So the way that we create a Turing pattern is with some equations called reaction diffusion equations. And usually they describe how two or possibly more chemicals are moving around and reacting with each other. So diffusion is the process of sort of spreading out. So if you can imagine, I don't know, if you had a dish with two chemicals in, they're both spreading out across the dish, they're both reacting with each other. This is what reaction diffusion equations are describing.
This was Turing's first bit of genius to combine these two ideas, diffusion and reaction, to explain patterns. Because diffusion on its own doesn't create patterns. Just think of ink in water. Simple reactions don't create patterns either. Reactants become products, and that's that.
So everybody thought back then that if you introduce diffusion describing.
This was Turing's first bit of genius to combine these two ideas, diffusion and reaction, to explain patterns. Because diffusion on its own doesn't create patterns. Just think of ink in water. Simple reactions don't create patterns either. Reactants become products, and that's that.
So everybody thought back then that if you introduced diffusion into systems, it would stabilize it, and that would basically make it boring. What I mean by that is you wouldn't see a lovely pattern. You'd have an animal with just one colour. But actually Turing showed that when you introduce diffusion into these reacting chemical systems, it can destabilize and form these amazing patterns.
A reaction diffusion system may sound intimidating, but it's actually pretty simple. There are two chemicals, an activator and an inhibitor. The activator makes more of itself and makes inhibitor, while the inhibitor turns off the activator. How can this be translated to actual biological patterns? Imagine a cheetah with no spots. We can think of its fur as a dry forest. In this really dry
He kind of look weak then, don't it? Kind of look a little weak then.
forest, little fires break out. But firefighters are also stationed throughout our forest.
Obviously not weak in strength, because baby, ooh, They dangerous.
And they can travel faster than the fire. The fires can't be put out from the middle, so they outrun the fire and spray it back from the edges. We're left with blackened spots surrounded by unburned trees in our cheetah forest. Fire is like the activator chemical. It makes more of itself. The firefighters are the inhibitor chemical, reacting to the fire and extinguishing it. Fire and firefighters both spread or diffuse throughout the forest. The key to getting spots and not an all-black cheetah is that the firefighters spread faster than the fire. And by adjusting a few simple variables like that, Turing's simple set of mathematical rules can create a staggering variety of patterns.
These equations that produce spotted patterns like cheetahs, the exact same equations can also produce stripy patterns, or even a combination of the two. And that depends on different numbers inside the equations. For example, there's a number that describes how fast the fire chemical will produce itself. There's a number that describes how fast the fire chemical would diffuse and how fast the water chemical would diffuse as well. And all these different numbers inside the equations can be altered very slightly, and then we'd see, instead of a spotted pattern, a stripy pattern.
And one other thing that affects the pattern is the shape you're creating the pattern on. A circle or square is one thing, but animal skins aren't simple geometric shapes.
Damn, they did not have the skin buddy up like that. What the heck? That looks so weird. I just want to start by saying, I don't know when. Maybe I need to get around, and I would love to. Because science was always something that was interesting to me. Because how did you come up with this one? And it still, to me, all boils down to you just getting some sort of a pacifier in this reality in order to feel as if you may understand this very complex world and everything in it, right? I feel like, yes, there's a lot of similarities. There's, things that are behaving somewhat the same pattern, woo woo. But it's always been interesting where they make this thing as if science is a hard fact at times. I mean, people sometimes want to argue with you because they have data and paperwork, when again, it's just only someone else's mind that has created this thing, like this certain math equation that's supposed to be used to calculate this, that, and the third. And where that's all fine and dandy, as we know, or if you do not know, that's all fine and dandy. But as you know, over time, right, some scientists become no longer that great of a scientist that you thought they were because of what they came up with. And they were able to repeat and put on a system that works. So what all I'm saying when I say this is, just because they have this data or this information to back it up and prove it, that does not mean that it is the end all be all. And I just want some of the people who like to argue points that they found here, there, wherever, and they feel that it is valid because it comes from a certain source. When, as we know, man, it's so many things that can change, and one of the things I appreciate about the spiritual world, where it's like a open dialogue. Yeah, you got some people who feel like they know it all and what their ancestors or whomever they connect with told them is what it is. But I feel like if we're gonna go that route with anything, because some people condemn it because I'm speaking from a spiritual standpoint, it's condemned all the way around. But it's the same thing, We're all here just trying to discover and unveil or uncover what this all is in our respective sections, areas. I just really hope that people get to a point to where we can really accept that there's multiple things and multiple ways to look at all of the things. You know what I mean? Don't just feel this is this just because it has worked and made sense, right? Even though right now we're looking at, now I'm about to get back to the video, but even right now we're looking at what this guy's doing, man. And you know how I mean, you know who I'm speaking of. Looking at what this guy's doing, and though it's not happening in the way that we may have wanted it to happen, right? And yeah, some people having to find out the hard way because they didn't use their own mind and what they've experienced as their truth of knowledge, instead being led where they should have been leading themselves. It's still a thing of, we don't really know how it's going to play out. You know what I'm saying? And while maybe screwing over a bunch of other people, it may end up, working out some weird way. Not saying it's just going to be just because of those plans. Okay? What I mean is, sometimes it takes for someone to come in and try and crash it all, because it might just need to be crashed. You feel what I'm saying? Versus somebody who come in and are just tweaking little parts. Because I think I'm gonna do a whole nother video. On what I'm thinking right now. Confirmation. So yeah, I'm gonna we're gonna just do that because it gets beyond. But I feel we need to be open to more information, because really a lot of this stuff that we know is built on, or feel like we know, is built on other people's discovery, when we can still discover on our own and things are still evolving and shifting, and we're coming into contact with a lot more of nature in itself. So yeah, and it can bring a lot more enlightenment. And I hope people also are kind of learning that there's more things to put together, right? Like math and nature, right? Two things you can look at as completely different things, but they can be used to represent. It's kind of like I don't know what it's actually called, but it's just pretty much use it as a basic, right? Let's say A is for apple. That's a very standard thing. You understand when you see an apple, it can be associated with the letter A if in that setting where you're playing certain games or you're doing certain this or that. That's what I mean. So I really hope that we start to look at all of this and we can start to come up with our own conclusions, not from delusion, but from truly just taking a look at, first, what do you already know that exists that you can see has a pattern and it makes sense from your standpoint, right? And also making sure we understand that more things can be true at the same time. Okay, that's something that we do not want to accept. It's kind of like this thing where it's black or white, and people think that the gray area does not exist. That's what they say. You either on this side or you're on this side. Well, I can get that. You know what I'm saying? I can definitely understand what you would say to that, but yeah.
When Turing's mathematical rules play out on irregular surfaces, different patterns can form on different parts. And often, when we look at nature, this predicted mix of patterns is what we see. We think of stripes and spots as very different shapes, but they might be two versions of the same thing, identical rules playing out on different surfaces.
It is. It's just a dot that's been stretched out, elongated. I mean, a stripe is, if you're into art and graphic design, that's basically all it is. I mean, take a circle, scale it differently, boom, that's all it is.
Turing's 1952 article was largely ignored at the time, perhaps because it was overshadowed by other groundbreaking discoveries in biology, like Watson and Crick's 1953 paper describing the double helix structure of DNA. Or perhaps because the world simply wasn't ready to hear the ideas of a mathematician when it came to biology. But after the 1970s, when scientists Alfred Gehrer and Hans Meinhardt rediscovered Turing patterns in a paper of their own, biologists began to take notice. And they started to wonder, creating biological patterns using mathematics may work on paper or inside of computers, but how are these patterns actually created in nature? It's been a surprisingly sticky question to untangle. I mean, Turing's mathematics, they simply and elegantly model reality. But to truly prove Turing right, biologists needed to find actual morphogens, chemicals or proteins inside cells that do what Turing's model predicts. And just recently, after decades of searching, biologists have finally begun to find molecules that fit the math. The ridges on the roof of a mouse's mouth, the spacing of bird feathers, or the hair on your arms, even the tooth-like dentical scales of sharks. All of these patterns are sculpted in developing organisms by the diffusion and reaction of molecular morphogens, just as Turing's math predicted. But as simple and elegant as Turing's math is, some living systems have proven to be a bit more complex. In the developing limbs of mammals, for example, three
Ugh. Let me get that out the screen before I talk.
different activator inhibitor signals interact in elaborate ways to create the pattern of fingers, stripe-like signals alternating on and off like ones and zeros, a binary pattern of digits. Sadly, Alan Turing never lived to see his genius recognized. The same year he published his paper on biological patterns, he admitted to being in a homosexual relationship, which at the time was a criminal offense in the United Kingdom, rather than
That's another thing. I really need to find a video about inventions where this man is just talking about how he was explaining to a lot of different inventors about how to go about moving forward in this world when creating something or discovering something in a world in a world, because it's not really just the US, but in a world where control is very, very, very popular, okay? And so much so to the point to where they will literally off you feel me, in multiple different ways, mentally, physically, and they'll, if you're still living, right, it's sad, it's not funny at all, really it's sad, but excuse me, they also will assassinate your character, right, who you are. What's amazing to me is you just see how it gets played out fully though. You know what I mean? Like your character gets assassinated and it becomes a thing to where while people on this side are able to do those exact same things in reality, and then everybody's still delulu, quote unquote, supposed to be at least, you on the other hand don't get that same grace just because you don't have typically the money, the amount of people in your back pocket, typically from blackmailing, and you're not playing a game that they're playing. That's what I don't like, right? Because this has been a lot of discoveries, I'm pretty sure, in a lot of different ways, because we have beautiful minds, right? I just hate how it plays out. And there's somebody right now, it's a video I want to react to right now of a guy, and it's happening the same way, but what I really want us to do is learn, you know what I mean? Learn from the people in our history. Learn. Do better. Okay, that's all, because it ended up being something that they end up using years later after he was gone, but you tried to condemn him in that time because you can benefit from him, because a lot of times you don't understand it, or because simply something of him being a homosexual is the issue. You know what I'm saying? And this is just us on the now side. This was how long ago? So just imagine what was happening in his reality. You feel me?
to being in a homosexual relationship, which at the time was a criminal offense in the United Kingdom, Rather than go to prison, he submitted to chemical castration treatment with synthetic hormones. 2 years later, in June of 1954, at the age of 41, he was found dead from cyanide poisoning, likely a suicide. In 2013, Turing was finally pardoned by Queen Elizabeth, nearly 60 years after his tragic death. Now, I don't like to make scientists sound like mythical heroes. I mean, even the greatest discoveries are the result of failure after failure, and are almost always built on the work of many others. They're
It's crazy how that some end up happening to him in some weird, odd way, right?
never plucked out of the ether and just put in someone's head by an angel of genius. But that being said, Alan Turing's work decoding zebra stripes and leopard spots leaves no doubt that he truly was a singular mind.
The equations that produce these patterns, we can't easily solve them with pen and paper, and in most cases we can't at all, and we need computers to help us. So what's really amazing is that when Alan Turing was writing these theories and studying these equations, he didn't have the computers that we have today to be able to understand when the patterns form and to see those patterns really quickly. So this here is some of Alan Turing's notes that were found in his house when he died. And you'll notice that they're not actually numbers.
Wow, it's like a secret code.
Yeah, it's like a secret code. It's his secret code. It's in binary actually, but instead of writing binary out because you've got the 5 digits, he had this other code that kind of coded up the binary. So Alan Turing could describe the equations in this way that required millions of calculations by a computer, but he didn't really have, he didn't have a fast computer to do it, so it would have taken him absolutely ages.
What has the world lost out on by the fact that we lost Alan Turing?
It's extremely hard to describe what the world's missed out on with losing Alan Turing, because so often he couldn't communicate his thoughts to other people because they were so far ahead of other people, and they were so complicated they seemed to come out of nowhere sometimes. But when you read accounts of people who knew him, they were saying the same thing. We don't know where he got this idea from. So what he could have achieved, I don't think anyone could possibly say. I have no idea where we would have got to, but it would have been brilliant.
One war historian estimated that the work of Turing and his fellow codebreakers shortened World War II in Europe by more than 2 years, saving perhaps 14 million lives in the process. And after the war, Turing was instrumental in developing the core logical programming at the heart of every computer on Earth today, including the one you're watching this video on. And decades later, his lifelong fascination with the mathematics underlying nature's beauty has inspired completely new questions in biology. Doing any one of these things would be worth celebrating. To do all of them is the mark of a rare and special mind, one that could see that the true beauty of mathematics is not just its ability to describe reality, it's to deepen our understanding of it. Stay curious. Hey, before you go, if you're looking for a fun show for any budding young scientists in your life, we think you would really love Mega Wow. It's hosted by comedian Katie Wen. This show is built to get kids excited about science through fun and wacky experiments. We guarantee your curious scientist will scream. Mega Wow! And just tell them Joe sent you. It doesn't take a genius like Alan Turing to know that we couldn't make this show without the support of all of our patrons. So thank you. If you'd like to join that esteemed club, you can click the link down in the description and find out more. We'll see you in the next video. That's a really good question. But to truly prove.
All right, my bad, y'all. So, yes, it's amazing what we can come up with once we definitely use our mind, but it's also good to understand there's so many factors that go into it, and there's never anything wrong with getting with some people also and kind of talking on a real level, you know what I mean, and kind of dissecting some of these things instead of just taking everything at face value. That's why I appreciate places like Jubilee where they let people just sit down and kind of debate it out. So yeah. It's hold on one second. So yeah, my bad. So yes, I really hope that we can get some people to use their own brain, because a lot of times we end up in a lot of situations when we don't use our own mind as well and take these things that we do know of and learn and see how we can expand, man, especially in this life. That's why I come on here and I give the knowledge that's being presented, you know what I'm saying? But also always thinking of my own and just really expanding and looking at things a different way, because I also understand that people are behind these things, you know what I'm saying? People make mistakes and people don't have full understandings, or certain things have not been discovered yet from another person that needs to be added with what this person is saying for it to actually be what is really needed to carry us forward. So yeah, as you know, discoveries on discoveries, and then you combine some information together, and y'all got something great. So yeah, more and more beautiful things. I will continue to react, of course, to to some things that, excuse me, that I've really, oh my eye, that I really am interested in, and hopefully you people are interested as well. Otherwise, you probably wouldn't have clicked on the video. If you made it this far, though, I appreciate you. You have a good one, and she'll catch me in like 2 seconds. All right. Oh, if you have not watched any of my other videos, make sure you go back and watch the other sensible reaction videos as well. Also, you can catch me on Twitch. That is going to be in the description down below. But to make this simple for you, it is just the same name as it is here on YouTube. Just add an E at the end. So it's extra E. 3 E's at the end instead of 2. All right. Have a good one.